This is the third I have had to defarce in the past hour. Well, here goes nothing.
Hey Hop, is that script ready? Hey, what are you doing with that flamethrower?
Yes, absolutely, it is, right over there!
What the— Ow, you son of a bitch! That hit my face! Where'd you go? So Ben Shapiro versus Tucker Carlson in a debate about AI-driven trucks. Never before have I been less interested by a premise in my life. However, this actually did turn out to be a somewhat remarkable watch. Not because I was able to derive anything of substance from it, in fact quite the opposite. This single debate exposes just about every problem with the Republicans' ideals about economics. Now, I've been planning on creating a video critiquing conservative economics during a circumstance like this for a while now, but this is difficult when you're dealing with a political sphere that is deliberately designed to be as unspecific about its principles as possible, and here in this debate you have hands down the best demonstration of this. You have two people who identify with the oxymoronic label of Republican Libertarian, both are Zionist shills who support police statism, and both have gained a significant following by picking low-hanging fruit and pandering to Donald Trump's base of support. However, they hold contradictory views on economics. Oh, and I'm also collaborating with Hoplu.
Hello.
Would you, Tucker Carlson, be in favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number of jobs that are available in the trucking industry?
Are you joking? In a second. In a second. In other words, if I were president, when I say to DOT, to Department of Transportation, we're not letting driverless trucks on the road, period. Why? Really simple. Driving for a living is the single most common job for high school educated men in this country, in all 50 states. By the way, that's the same group whose wages have gone down by 11% over the past 30 years. The social cost of eliminating their jobs in a 10-year span, 5-year span, 30-year span is so high that it's not sustainable.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Ben rather surprisingly does actually attempt to refute this argument by mentioning the Luddite fallacy, which, yes, Tucker absolutely is engaging in, which is the main problem with his argument here and what seems to be his understanding of economics in general.
What's to prevent this principle that you're speaking up from just becoming Ludditism? That technology is destroying jobs.
Well, I don't think
just freeze
Ludditism
technology
is insane. I mean, there were massive costs to the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, because saving a few jobs at the expense of not only halting the productive capacity of America and essentially giving her industrial competitors, more specifically the rice lands, a boost to their production that America will never receive, but also a stagnation of the economy in the sense that truck drivers, of whom I must add are very capable of doing more than just trucking, will never be reallocated to more productive sectors of the economy. Not even taking account for the fact that the increased demand in automation is the product of the price of workers being artificially inflated. For example, the minimum wage, which, by the way, Cuck is one of the idiots who demanded Amazon raise their wages.
Bernie Sanders, of all people, is trying to get your money back from Jeff Bezos.
The Luddite fallacy is a variation of the lump of labor fallacy. In other words, people like Tucker believe that automation will cause unemployment because the labor market has a static supply of jobs, and obviously neither of these claims are true. Now, in the short term, sure, you may lose a few specific jobs from some industries, but what ends up happening is that resources and investment sunk into the labor market for the industry in question are freed up, and investors start putting their money into other markets. In the long term, automation is actually a gain for the economy because, say for example, McDonald's completely would replace all of their cashiers with machines. This would result in a drop in prices, and because both producers and consumers as a result have more money to invest, this results in the creation of more jobs. This is the reason restaurants like McDonald's are investing so heavily in automated kiosks for areas which have higher minimum wages. The increase to the cost of production caused by regulations halted their ability to staff an efficient amount of workers. So they've started to try and invest in new resources to keep their products affordable so that they can continue profiting at the rate they were. This is also the reason why minimum wage causes unemployment, but that's another topic for a different day. Anyway, a recent example which most everyone should be familiar with as to the positive effects automation has on the market would be with the video rental industry. In 2005, Blockbuster alone had 72,000 employees working for them. Then you factor in all of the competitors like Hollywood Video, Hastings, or Showtime, and you can figure that this was a multi-billion-dollar industry which had hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of employees working within it. So if the Luddite argument was correct, you'd think that it would have become more expensive to rent or buy movies, and that unemployment would have increased drastically by the potential millions of people who would have lost their jobs in response to digital media and online independent content creation. Right?
And so you shut your goddamn furry snow KFC eating fucks anus of a mouth. Don't you know that working at a VCR rental is an important aspect of culture? What are you, some noseman shill who would rather cheap window maker porn and efficient industrial capacity over culture? I cannot believe you and your barbarity, not focusing on only one sector of the economy and spinning that as an attack on the working man and culture, while conveniently ignoring the bigger picture. No, seriously, this is pretty much the chain of logic that trumpets and protectotards use. Nationalism really is a curse on economics.
It's not like I didn't enjoy Blockbuster or Toys R Us when I was younger, but seriously, don't tell me for a second you would rather spend $20 to rent a movie for like 3 days, which you're probably only going to watch once in that period of time, than stream any new show or movie you want for usually under $10 a month. Hell, it's not even like rental services have gone away. Red boxes are everywhere. Not only that, but you can rent the best new movies and games for $5 now instead of $20. I mean, fuck nostalgia when the future is this damn awesome. Now imagine if every industry was able to operate like this without tariff cucks like Tucker or progressive bootlickers messing it up with their fucking regulations. But then again, nationalism is by definition a form of social justice. So why are you surprised that attempts to mix nationalism and economic policy result in pretty much the same as any progressive economic policies?
So the greater good is protecting your citizens.
Oh, and this idiot has the gall to say he has, quote-unquote, libertarian values.
Only when your brain is operating on full collectivism can you think that the state killing emerging innovations which would reduce the cost of production and in turn cause the price of commodities to drop, and for the state to force companies to create certain jobs in order to stop these less efficient jobs from being innovated out of existence, is even remotely close to a good thing. Now, people really seem to think of Tucker Carlson as some sort of intellectual giant, as you can easily see by the absurd amount of "you can't cuck the tuck" compilations on YouTube that pop up when you search his name. And as you can also see, not only is he not an intellectual giant, but he's actually sort of a mental midget. This is a man who thinks that communism was created by automation that we're dealing with, and continues to support the war on drugs on the basis that it stops crime. I mean, not only can you cuck the tuck, as I and Hoplu have proven, but it's actually pretty easy to do so.
I'm just saying that there was a cost. Half the world was enslaved for 70 years under Bolshevism because those countries didn't manage, I would argue, the transition from an agrarian economy into an industrial one.
Unrestrained mechanization, making the common people wealthy while progressivist elites fool dumbos like Cuck Tuck the Cuck into believing this shit. What's interesting to note is that a lot of these, oh no, not the manufacturing gerbs types is that none of them are working in factories or are driving trucks around. No, they're in the service sector, the place where all the workers of whose jobs were quote-unquote stolen go, providing things like news, entertainment, education, etc., etc. Something of which they probably wouldn't have been able to do so easily if there was such a need for manufacturing. I bet you the remaining half of my pack of Skittles that Cuck the Cuck would much rather continue to work in his cushy, air-conditioned Fox News job rather than drive a truck or work in a factory, while complaining about the fact that there's less of a need for these people to be working in those kinds of horrible conditions as someone or something has been invented to change the status quo, while spinning this as an attack on the common working man in favor of money, even though in reality this change to the status quo ultimately benefits everyone. So thank you very fucking much, Cuck the Cuck, for ruining what will be the only time that Ben Shapiro will actually be a man and debate something other than damned college students by being an absolute retard and a plague.
In a sense, Tucker and other nationalists who support protectionism are very much like the Starbucks latte-sipping bourgeois liberals who lecture everyone about class politics, while they and their family would be some of the first people to get the bullet in an actual Marxist revolution. The audacity of Tucker and other Republicans to claim that they support free markets is an insult to our intelligence and proves that they either don't understand the economic and market theories which they claim to support and think they do, or they know that they don't and are trying to mislead well-meaning people who are uninformed back into the political system. The fundamental observation which all supply-side economic policy and catalaxy is based on is something known as Say's law. When somebody produces a good or service, they get paid for that work and are then able to use that money to demand other products and services. The money you would earn from the production of new goods or the provision of additional services is spent, which increases demand. In other words, if there is no production, then demand cannot exist. Therefore, aggregate production necessarily will always produce an equal aggregate demand in the market, which isn't really economic theory more than it is an uncontroversial fact, but for some reason this is disputed, and protectionist economic policies, such as tariffs or attempting to regulate new innovations off the market, run directly contrary to this. So not only do protectionist neocons not understand the ethics of a free market, but they demonstrably don't understand the effects on the market of one either, which means that Tucker here is either an ignoramus or a liar. In either case, he has no credibility. Now, I've seen a common, almost cliché rebuttal to this by Republicans in response to the few libertarians before us who've actually called Tucker out on this, and I must address this really quickly before we go, which is that because production is becoming more efficient and requires less input, jobs are necessarily becoming more specialized as a result, meaning that employment must go down. But this only further demonstrates their lack of economic understanding. All specialization means is that a job is becoming more focused on one single task or area. This doesn't mean that the employment being created by this innovation will be any more complicated to utilize than previous positions. The entire reason automation even happens is that the new products being made are easier to produce and use, and the means by which they're produced are becoming more efficient. Now, if the government creates new licensing laws to try and monopolize the new industry, and artificial scarcity is created as a result, then this could conceivably happen. However, that's not the result of the market. At the end of the day, this argument is just special pleading. Automation has never in history resulted in production becoming less efficient, but this hasn't stopped protectionists from arguing for thousands of years that the market wouldn't be able to sustain new innovations. Hell, even back when buggy whips were being innovated off the markets, protectionists used this exact same argument. It boils down to basically, well, this time it'll be different, and no, it won't. Innovation will and always has led to greater efficiency. That is the fucking point of innovating in the first place.